1991, former actress and singer Jenny Jones got her own talk show. The show was called none other than The Jenny Jones Show. The show covered the typical daytime talk show topics, such as paternity tests and out-of-control teens. However, by 1993, it began to move away from serious subjects and began to take on more unusual subjects, such as feuding neighbours, strippers, makeovers, and secret crushes. It began to be compared to rival shows, such as Jerry Springer and The Ricky Lake Show. Shows that are infamous for the way they show a lack of respect to their guests, and for being exploitative in how they conduct the interviews, trying to rile guests up for their reactions in order to boost ratings. These new and outrageous topics that The Jenny Jones Show began to take on did indeed begin to boost ratings, and the show ran successfully throughout the 1990s. However, its eventual downfall began one day in early 1995. The Jenny Jones Show reached out to a man named Jonathan Schmitz. The producers of the show had informed Jonathan that he had a secret admirer and invited him to be a guest on the talk show, along with the admirer whose identity was kept a secret. Jonathan was both flattered and curious, and so he agreed to participate and be a guest on the show. One thing the producers of the show left out was that Jonathan's secret admirer was a man. They knew full well that Jonathan was heterosexual, but they obviously thought that his disappointed reaction would make for good TV viewing. Jonathan had previously been engaged to a woman for around 4 years. However, they'd broken up just a couple of months prior to his appearance on the show. Because of this, Jonathan was hoping it was going to be her. He even remarked to everyone at work that if this was his ex-fiancée, this time he was going to marry her. Before Jonathan got on the airplane to the show's studios, he went out and bought himself a brand new outfit, all ready to impress his admirer. He was convincing himself that this would be the big turnaround event in his life. And so the day of filming came, March the 6th, 1995. The cameras started rolling, and Jenny Jones explained the predicament to the audience. On the stage sat Jonathan's secret admirer, a man called Scott Amateur. Alongside Scott sat his friend Donna Riley, who happened to be Jonathan's neighbour, and was the reason that Jonathan and Scott were acquaintances. Scott had first seen and immediately fallen for Jonathan when he was under Donna's car working on her brake lights, a story that he was more than happy to share with the audience.
Gosh, tell me about the first time you met him. Where was he?
Basically, he was under a car, working on her brake line.
Yeah. And that was your first time? What was your first impression?
Well, I only saw the lower half of him, so you can imagine.
He went on to profess his love for Jonathan, even joking to the host and the audience his fantasies about what he'd like to do to Jonathan sexually. All the while, Jenny Jones was encouraging him and egging him on, getting his hopes and confidence up, just like the producers had done to Jonathan.
Okay, you think about it, you have fantasies about him?
I've had a couple, yeah.
Yeah, you had when he was under the car, you had a fantasy about him.
Yeah, something to do with like brake oil, line snapping, and...
Tell us about, you have another one that involved, you were in a hammock or something? Tell us about that fantasy.
Yeah, I thought about it, tying him up to my hammock.
And?
Well, it entails like whipped cream and champagne, stuff like that.
Finally came the time for Jonathan to meet his secret admirer, and out he came, only to be greeted by his neighbour Donna, who he had originally thought was his secret admirer, and next to her, a man he had only met a handful of times through Donna.
Let's have John come out here and see who has the crush on him. Here's John.
After he sat down, Jenny Jones gleefully told Jonathan that it wasn't Donna that had the crush, but in fact her friend Scott. Jonathan was visibly humiliated, putting his hands to his face. All the while, Jenny Jones was twisting the knife, trying to get as much of a reaction from the guests as possible for the benefit of the viewers.
He opened it, but he's been fantasizing about you since he saw you under that car for the first time. He had an under-the-car fantasy and he had a hammock fantasy he's been telling us about. Did you have any idea that he liked you this much?
No, I did not.
Can you tell us what your status is? Are you involved with anybody, or?
No, but I am definitely heterosexual, I guess you could say.
Jonathan politely made it clear that he wasn't interested, and stated that he was completely heterosexual, but flattered nonetheless. Even giving Scott a hug and laughing alongside him to try and ease the awkward tensions and show that there was no hard feelings. Jonathan lightheartedly utters the sentence to Jenna, "You lied to me."
You lied to me.
Indicating that when he had asked producers if it was a man that he would be meeting, they had lied and told him no. All seemed to end in a friendly encounter, and acting ever the gentleman once the show had ended, Jonathan even offered to drive Donna and Scott back to the airport, ready for their flight home. The night after filming the show, Scott and Jonathan went out drinking together with a few other friends. It seemed that they were both on good and friendly terms. However, unknown to anyone, was that Jonathan was a ticking time bomb. He already felt deep humiliation at being tricked onto a show and embarrassed in front of his peers. He felt that he had been set up by the producers of the show, as they had heavily implied that his secret admirer was a female. To add to his impending frustration, once back home, Jonathan's father began making homophobic remarks to his son, only further fueling his feelings of shame. This is where things began to take a turn for the worst. According to one of Scott's friends who later testified at the trial, after the night of drinking, Scott and Jonathan had actually gone off together to engage in sexual intercourse. I cannot confirm that the two men did end up engaging in sexual intercourse. However, Scott did end up in Jonathan's home. We know this because Scott had left a suggestive note at Jonathan's house that read, "If you really want to get it off, I'm the only one that has the right tool." After finding this note, Jonathan had become enraged. It had tipped him over the edge. This proved to be the final straw for him. Now, if he had in fact had this alleged sexual encounter with Scott, perhaps he had sobered up the next day, found the note, and realised what he had done. Or perhaps he had just had enough of the constant ridicule from people, and on top of this, Scott's persistence was overbearing. Still, I cannot justify what he did next. Jonathan went and withdrew money from a bank, drove to a weapons shop, and purchased a shotgun. He then made his way over to Scott's mobile home. He confronted Scott and questioned him about the note. Jonathan then returned to his car, got his newly purchased gun, and returned to Scott's trailer. He then shot Scott twice in the chest, killing him instantly. After killing Scott, Jonathan left the residence, telephoned 911, and confessed to the killing.
I think I just shot a man. Okay. Okay, why did you do that?
At the trial, Jenny Jones herself was present and questioned by Jonathan's defence team. They tried to paint the picture that he had been coached onto the show under false pretenses. When asked if she knew Jonathan's admirer was going to be a man, she replied with yes. It soon became known that when pitching the idea to Jonathan, the producers had told him that his admirer could be either a man or a woman. Jonathan had told them to forget it. He wasn't going to be on the show if his admirer was a man, to which one of the producers then replied, "Don't worry, we've spoken to her, it's fine," thus implying that his admirer was in fact a woman. It also came to light after the murder that the show had told Donna and Scott to make their appearance as entertaining to the audience as possible, and had even pushed for Scott to give Jonathan flowers and to kiss him. However, Scott had refused. They had also encouraged him to drink vodka before his appearance if he was nervous, something that the producers were also questioned about in court, to which they sheepishly denied.
To be a man or a woman. It was his choice to come on.
But you knew it was a man, didn't you?
Yes.
So saying it could be a man or could be a woman was a lie, wasn't it?
I don't think so. I told him it could be a man or a woman.
Could it have been a woman?
No.
But you told John it could have been a woman, right?
Yes.
Isn't that a lie? Told him something that it couldn't have been.
Sure.
So they finessed him.
At his trial, defense attorneys argued that Jonathan, who had been diagnosed with manic depression and Graves' disease, was caused to commit homicide by mental illness and humiliation by way of the gay panic defense. The gay panic defense is a legal strategy claiming that a guilty party committed a violent act because of a state of temporary insanity due to the unwarranted sexual advances from members of the same sex. Despite this, Jonathan was found guilty of second-degree murder in 1996 and sentenced to 25 to 50 years in prison. However, his conviction was later overturned on appeal. Upon retrial, he was found guilty of the same charge once again, and his sentence was reinstated. In 1999, the Amador family filed a wrongful death suit against the Jenny Jones show. They claimed that the producers had ambushed Schmitz. They believed the murder may have been avoided had the producers informed Schmitz his secret admirer was of the same gender. The jury found the Jenny Jones show guilty of negligence and awarded the Amador family close to $30 million in restitution, but not for long. The show filed an appeal in 2002 in which the verdict was overturned. Nonetheless, the murder left an eerie cloud over the show, so much so that the ratings consistently declined, and by the year 2003, the show was cancelled. Jonathan was released from prison on August the 22nd, 2017, and today is a free man.
Guess what? It's Scott that has the crush on you.
You lied to me.
Did you have any idea that he liked you this much?
No, I did not.
A few days after the taping, Jonathan Schmitz showed up at Scott Amador's mobile home Thursday morning and shot him twice in the chest. Amador died on the floor of his home.
I see him standing there with smoke coming out of his chest. Every night, I don't sleep. It's hard, because I expect him there all the time. And I just picture this hole with smoke coming out of him. And it's like living in a movie. It's not really happening.